I'm Arya Schwartz, and welcome to the Winsidr Show, where it's all about the W. 15% into the season, we have a ton to discuss. Early season struggles in Phoenix, Vegas looking mid-season form, Portland fire pit, come on, and the Sparks chase glory. Like I said, we got lots to discuss, so let's cut to the basket. Before we get into today's show, just a quick reminder, Winsidr is fully independent WNBA coverage, and everything we do is supported by listeners like you. If you enjoy what we're doing here, you can keep it going by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/Winsidr. That's patreon.com/Winsidr, with pricing levels for everyone you're directly supporting the work we do, and we cover the W year round. We also have a full team producing great written coverage over at winsidr.com, plus more content than ever across TikTok, Instagram, Blue Sky, Twitter, and YouTube. And if you're in the market for WNBA gear, check the affiliate links in the show notes and on winsidr.com. You get to rep the league, and Winsidr gets a little support along the way. Welcome back to the show. Excited to be here. I'm back with Kevin. Kevin Forch is back. Couldn't keep him away forever. How you doing? How was coaching youth basketball?
I'm doing great. Coaching youth basketball, especially the kind of the tween age girl division, added a lot of gray hair that didn't exist before. But I feel so up to date on dance routines and lingo that I think it was an overall beneficial experience.
Love it. Love it. Okay, great. Well, let's hop right in. We got a few teams to discuss. Let's start with arguably the team that is the saddest of our four. The Phoenix Mercury. Let's just be real about it. They're sitting at 2-6, second to last place in the league currently. Just really, really struggled. Just to run down some stats for you. From a points perspective, they are struggling. They are sitting at 8th. They're staying like 10th, right at 85 points a game. That's just not what they're expected. But when I talk about the Phoenix Mercury, for me, it's kind of like, they're not going to be the most high-powered offense. That's kind of what an Alyssa Thomas team is, and that's not shade. The type of offense they're going to grind you out. They're going to play physical. Now, yes, kind of what Phoenix has been able to do in this Alyssa Thomas era has been surround her with shooters, which is super fun and amazing. But I look at this team and I just go, there's a lack of depth, especially when you have Sammy Wickham injured. And especially when during the offseason, they lost a couple players and kind of, lost 3, replaced 1. And it just is so obvious. Kaz struggling, but yes, they're both averaging 18 points. She's just not shooting at the highest percentage that she's done in the past. Yo-Yo Nogic is doing 14 a game. She's playing great. Really amazing. Makani coming back is big for this team because when you look at this roster without Makani, they're kind of playing 5 deep in terms of like high impact players. And now you bring Makani back. So I think that was kind of the asterisk for this lame start. And anytime you have Alyssa Thomas, you're going to make a deep playoff push. You're going to make at least like a deep season push. But the thing that has been so staggeringly painful to watch, struggling to watch, whatever you want to say, is the Phoenix Mercury are also letting up 86 points per game. That's 9th in the league. That's just not kind of what they're known to do. And the worst part is they are allowing a league worst 3-point percentage of 39. Essentially their opponents are shooting 40% from the 3-point line, which is just an absurd stat. Sorry, I'm rambling on. There's just so much to unpack here about what's been going on in Phoenix. And I'm curious for you, what's your Mercury takeaway, besides the fact that they have arguably the best jerseys in the league right now?
Okay, for starters, if we want to start at the good, those retro jerseys were fantastic. Whew. And the coach sweaters that they had to wear on the sidelines against the Liberty, I want 12 of them. I would wear every day.
I can't because I have red hair. So my palette is limited, but I appreciate how cool they are. And I wish, I don't wish I didn't have red hair because red hair is cooler than all others, but I wish I could wear.
What I want to start with though is if we work backwards is to what you brought up on the defense. And I don't know from like any level of basketball when I was watching Maureen Johannes from the Liberty shoot threes against them and hit three after three from the same spot on the court or the same two spots on the court. And just there wasn't a second defender. Wasn't someone there to like run her off her line or make Maureen uncomfortable until like maybe the part of the third quarter, even in the midst of like the 23-0 run that the Liberty went on, to like really disrupt that. And then New York found other ways to score, and it was kind of all over the Liberty. There just doesn't seem to be the adjustments on the defense, which is like really concerning. And you could say it's like a McConney, like first game back, maybe still getting into the ropes of like live game, but there just doesn't seem to be a lot on the perimeter defensive wise. And maybe it's because the change in the enforcement on fouls, and DeWanna Bonner seems to rack up a lot more fouls than she did before, which I worry about her and how she's reacting. Like, I feel like she's going to hurt herself maybe on one of those reactions at some point. But I think that like something needs to happen along those lines too. And then we could talk about the offense later on, because I think there's definitely issues there too.
Oh, there's offensive issues too. I mean, look, to me, it boils down to this is a team that you could make an argument had an expectation or a thought of themselves, a thought of, excuse me, oh, we can lose this player and that player. I mean, I don't know about you. Excuse me. I saw the Satu comments of recent about, was she surprised to not be re-signed or cord? And to me, it became pretty obvious based on that like she was aware what was going down and she didn't necessarily want to go back. She wanted to explore options because she understood the direction of the team. And it seems like this team didn't make the necessary adjustments. I don't want to say they lucked out last year. They hit another home run with an overseas player. But, if you're really betting on the fact that you're going to hit like 3 home runs to replace 3 impact players on your roster, whether they were role player impact players or superstar impact players, that was the struggle that was going on. And they did not find replacements for what they lost. And now it is just an incomplete ship. Now that's offensively, that's defensively. I think the defense is a little bit more staggering. Offensively, like, I'm not upset if they are a middle of the pack offense in terms of scoring. Some games Ka's going to go off. Some games, Sammy's going to go off when she's back. McConney will go off. Yo-Yo's going to go off. They have elements, but again, they don't have the depth to do it. And so I start to wonder, okay, are we just, it's AT. So at the end of the day, also, it's like we're so early in the season. Are we overreacting? Will they find some? Obviously, this defense is going to get better, but they do lack they just lack things. They lack, front court depth. They lack as much 3-point shooting as they've had in the past around AT. And it kind of seems like they're almost reverting back to maybe Connecticut Suns team. I don't know, but with facilities and a crazy fan, I don't know.
That's exactly what I was thinking watching that Liberty game, especially. It's like, this feels like when Connecticut would kind of peter out in a playoff run. It just like shots weren't falling down. You were relying too much on Alyssa Thomas to do Alyssa Thomas things for everybody. And then there wasn't the positional flexibility to guard John Quell or a Stewie or someone like that. Now, I think I love Natasha Mack as a player. Like, I think for what she does, I think she is a good rebounder. I think when she does these screens with Ka or someone else at top, and she plays a little bit of that fullback role where she tries to like back in a little bit and create a driving lane for someone, like that's really good offense. But she struggled to guard John Quell. She's like, if she ever ended up on Stewie, like that was a struggle. And then Linskins is the same way. And that seems like your bigs that you have for defending. Whereas when you had Satu, you had a bigger player who had some of the speed, some of the agility to guard. And when Alyssa Thomas is playing, I think the stat I looked at, this was from like Basketball Reference, but she's played like the most minutes cumulative in the league so far this season.
Classic.
Yeah, which very AT thing. Also a very, am I looking at the Connecticut Sun again kind of thing. That's troubling kind of early on in the season, I think, for me, and that doesn't seem fixable. Whereas I would be surprised if Ka keeps shooting 16% on threes all season. Like at some point, we're gonna be past this, and I don't think DeWanna Bonner is going to shoot sub 20% on 3-pointers this season, which I think she's like right around there at this point either. But the lack of depth is a big problem.
Well, the lack of depth, again, Connecticut's something. And it's just, you start to struggle. Look, I appreciate Coach, kind of putting that loss on his shoulders, saying, my fault. I failed the team, not calling a timeout during that streak. I appreciate that. But we got to see changes. We got to see some difference. And I struggle too. Cause look, I'll open up the Slack chat just a little bit. There was a discussion going on in the Winsidr Slack today of this is a rough start. What do we think? Are they going to make a move? And I'm like, what is that move? Because if you're trying to get a impact player, unless you're going to give multiple role players that can eventually, add up, I guess, to be an impact player, you're giving away 2 to get 1 again, which is the same problem that they essentially had this offseason. So they don't have the capital to do it. And you don't have the DeWanna Bonner situation of last year to add her in, which was just icing on the cake. It's a very different story. I'm very curious about the adjustments we see from the Mercury moving forward. Any final thoughts before we move on to a brighter spot team?
And I think if you're looking forward on the Phoenix side too, you brought in Mark Suarez. I mean, she's 6'3". She can play a little bit bigger, but maybe not ready for the moment, but you got to try something at this point. So I think we're probably going to see a better Phoenix at some point, but I'm hopeful that's sooner rather than later.
Yeah, because honestly, the other thing is, the bigger the league is, yes, we can have. This is something I'm gonna be very curious about. I'm gonna have to hit up my math friend. Just the possible equations of, in the past, it was traditionally you'll have 1 or 2 teams, a very top heavy record for 1 or 2 teams, and then a lot of congestion, and then some bubble teams. I'm very curious what's going to happen now that the league gets bigger and bigger. That playoff pool stays the same. It's going to be quite interesting. Moving on to another team that, continues to do things that they have historically done, but that could really mean good things or bad things. Las Vegas Aces sitting at 4-2, haven't played as many games as some of the other teams. They haven't played since the 23rd, but they're playing again today as we record. It'll be a nice test for both teams. The Aces and the Wings play tonight. Obviously, by the time you listen to this, the game will be done and we'll sound like fools. But look, you start off this season and they lose to the Mercury pretty handedly. 33 points, 99-66. Obviously, we're sitting here May 10th. We're talking about very different Mercury team, very different Aces team. They bounced back to put a shellacking on the Sparks, 105-78. And then obviously against the Sun twice, we expect them to womp up on them, and they do. And, second game a little bit closer because you play a team twice in 3 days. Second game likely is going to be closer. And then Ace's dream game really goes down to the wire. Chelsea Gray does some ridiculous Chelsea Gray things. We can't talk about, and then obviously they play the Sparks and the Sparks get their licks back. But also interesting because the Sparks were a team that last year it felt like kind of always had that ability. And honestly, for a few years now, have felt like they've kind of had that ability they have the De'Erica Hamby, chip on the shoulder when they face them, and the team kind of rallies behind her. So just some overall stats. They're sitting second in points per game. Opponents' points per game, though, they're sitting at 10th. Opponents shooting 35% from the 3. That's 10th worst in the league. And then Asia's doing Asia things, 24 points a game, 7 rebounds, almost 3 assists, almost 2.5 blocks. Kennedy Carter, just feels like a cheat code for this team. She's doing amazing things off the bench, 20 points per game, 3 rebounds, essentially, a steal and a half, and 2.5 assists. Just amazing. Chelsea Gray doing her thing, not scoring as much, but 6.5 assists, 6-7 assists. Melissa Smith. Honestly, like, this Vegas Aces team, I'll say this. If they win it, it'll be the most talented Vegas Aces roster to win a championship. None of the other teams that have won a championship have been anywhere as talented as this. Traditionally, with the Aces, when they have the more talented team, they don't, perform as well. I'm talking about if you've been watching them for a while. But this is just like, it's ridiculous. They have Cheyenne Parker-Tyus, Bree Turner, Steph Talbot, who's giving them good minutes. He hasn't been like the most productive player. Dana Evans, great. Melissa Smith, Jewel Lloyd, struggling a little bit, but it's Jewel Lloyd's. Like, this team is deep. This team has Asia Wilson, and yes, they're not undefeated right now, which is like maybe a confusing thing, but they look good early. They look strong, and we're not talking about them as we were last year. Like, oh my God, are the wheels falling off? Has it finally happened? Are they even going to make the playoffs? Thoughts on the Las Vegas Aces? I have to say, they're probably the favorites, right? Again,
they're my favorites. I don't know how you can see what this team has done and not include that in the, especially what they did against Atlanta, where they dead in the water for 2.5, 3 quarters and just completely explode on a game that Jackie Young just, I think, sets the WNBA record for most field goal attempts without scoring a point, something like that.
I was going to say, I mentioned all of that, did not even mention Jackie Young once. And that's kind of on purpose because she has not been so amazing, and not no shade or anything. She's been playing pretty good, just not, eye-popping normal Jackie Young-esque, which is scary for when that does happen. But I think at the end of the day, this completely rides on Asia Wilson staying healthy. If Asia Wilson's healthy, they're the favorites at all points, at every point. If Asia Wilson doesn't stay healthy, then we're talking about other teams having a shot.
And that part of it is where I think this depth conversation happens. Because what I've noticed watching, especially their games against Connecticut, a little bit against Los Angeles, is that when you have minutes where you have Asia and Cheyenne Parker or Melissa Smith on the floor, Asia's on the perimeter a lot more. She can shoot a 3, but she can also, she's very happy to throw it into Melissa, who Melissa is playing just hair on fire underneath the basket, really active on rebounds, really active, just putting a body on somebody and muscling for a basket, which is really cool to see. And Asia seems pretty content to throw them the ball and let them cook. I say that after she drops 45 points on the Sun for one of those games. She's doing fine on her own. But what we talked about last with the Mercury, sort of I've seen this story before. This is a brand new story for Vegas, where do we envision a time over the summer where if they're playing really well, does somebody sort of take a longer break to maybe heal or gear up for a playoff run, where it felt like Asia had to put a whole lot on her shoulders just to, not to scrape into the playoffs, but to keep performing at a particular level. I think she, with what the rest of the team can do, can maybe doesn't have to do all the Asia Wilson things that she's been doing, the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Aces, and I'll bring up the Liberty, and not to toss in a little Liberty hate or anything, but no, when we look at the quote unquote super teams, right, they're a super team in part because you can lose a play, and that's why I do not adhere to what I find to be a ridiculous argument or logic theory, whatever, that oh, well, New York's missing Sabrina, or this super team is missing this one player. That's why it's a super team. It's not a super team because, it's when good teams start missing a star, that is the end of it. And other players step up, but they can't because it's just not possible. Other players can't. When you have a super team of 4 all-stars, 3 MVPs, this, and that, the scoring champ, the blah, 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 the unicorn, the New York Liberty, I don't know when you have all of those things and you're missing 1 or 2, you expect those other superstars. Your superstars are the players like Asia Wilson when Chelsea Gray's struggling, when Jackie Young's struggling, or when they're playing good, but everybody else is struggling, when Jewel Lloyd's struggling, or when all of your depth is struggling. Asia's been the one to put a team on her back. And that's what superstars do, is they kind of, take a bigger piece of the pie because somebody has to. And you see that not happening in other places, but now, Asia can take a smaller piece of the pie right now, can be less, damaging to her body for the long term of this season. And, this is a team where in the past, you had to question whether or not at certain points of the season, you could rest Asia Wilson in a key moment. Not a key moment like 10 seconds left, put your best players in, but in a key moment like in the third quarter, those moments build up where you're, piling on 5 extra minutes here, which will really compile towards later in the season and really be on her legs or on her shoulders later on. I think as much as everyone's talking about the Minnesota Lynx, and I got to give a shout out there because as of right now, they are sitting number 1 in the standings. That is ridiculous. Their 2 best players have not played yet. And Cheryl Reeve and Olivia Miles have somehow made Natasha Howard look like an MVP candidate. And it is ridiculous. Any final thoughts on the Aces before we move on to a red hot team?
Just that game against the Dream and that game against the Sparks felt so much like playoff games to me. Like, I look so forward to what the rest of the season looks like, because those were such intense games.
Moving on now to the Fire Pit. I mean, the Portland Fire, they're sitting at 5-3. They are 10th in the league in points per game, 11th for opponents' points per game. They beat the Sun, the tempo, so like not the most impressive, but take the 2-1 lead versus the Liberty in the series for the season. Quite impressive. That was eye-opening, I think, for a lot of people. And then we got like the Fire Pit is just insane. They are a team where I'm not going to say I'm going to pick them every time at home, but they're a team where if you're a betting person, you should be putting money on them at home if the money line is against them, because the odds are they will put up a good fight. They have been ridiculous. It's insane. Yesterday, they beat the Sun by 10. Not the craziest of things, but the way that they did it, they just continue to look cool, calm, collective. I do feel like they're going to cool off at a point. Look, they're sitting rating wise towards like outside of the playoff bubble, on the bubble, but outside of the playoff bubble. They have been great when it mattered most in key moments, making big comebacks, impressive comebacks for a franchise. I hate that this is the only time I'm going to mention the tempo this episode, because I don't want to constantly just be comparing these two teams, but I feel like, and I've said this before, Portland has kind of stole the apple of the eye of all the WNBA between these two franchises just right now, because that home base, that home court, the Fire Pit, can't stop saying it, and those big wins, those statement wins early on. And then also, let's talk about Alex. I mean, he's doing weird things in practice, like weird things. I don't even know what, like playing on your tippy toes and socks, and like no shoot arounds, and like, they got swimming noodles sticking out the back of their shirts, and they're popping balloons, and they're, on like little, the little push scooters that we used to play around in middle school and whatnot. And I love it. I'm extremely anti NBA coaches, men's side coaches coming to the W side. Don't get me wrong. He's been doing some oddball stuff, and I love me some oddball coaches. And then obviously Baby Bird has been doing ridiculous, 15.6 points, Carla Late, 42 assists, great play. Love that they're calling her Baby Bird. Bridget Carlton doing BC things. Emily Angsler has just been looking amazing. And yeah, it's a really fun team. Obviously, I haven't talked about the Sarah Ashley Barker, the SAB debate. But yeah, I mean, just a fun team. They're so evenly spread out. It's just ridiculous. Thoughts on the Portland Fire?
As you were talking, I had the thought of like, are we witnessing like the reverse Ted Lasso, where we have someone from England come to America and like reinvent like one of our sports? I think that's a great premise for what we're watching. But I remain just so impressed at the weirdness at what we're watching. And when it comes to just like full court pressure, like after every like made basket, I also just love this team. I don't know if there's any way to like track this stat at all. They seem to just hold on to the ball like the least amount of time at any like offensive possession. The amount of just like touch passes, swing passes, things that are going all over the court. Part of that is going to be their downfall at some point, because I think they're one of the highest like rated like turnover teams in the W. But that also leads to just like you get so many like corner like Megan Gustafson threes, and you get like once sort of like Podge sort of like starts to like get more used to like game time and like cutting to the basket and stuff like that. That'll lead to a lot of baskets there. I just think the pace at which they play with and that just sort of like freneticness, I think, is so different from what we have seen from other teams. If we think of like going all the way back to where we talked about like the Mercury pace is a lot different than what the Portland Fire pace is at. A lot of it has to do with age and like coaching and everything like that. But there's such a vast difference in styles that makes it fun to watch from a fan perspective, but also like what is it like to prep for a team like Portland when you haven't played against a full court press on a regular basis since probably like college or something like that. Like I think I think what they do and the weirdness they bring is one of their biggest strengths. And it frees up so much. Just thinks about like look at Sarah Ashley Barker, the way she played last year. Not that she played super tight, but what we see now with her just going after loose balls, the way that she is just like ripping the ball from folks playing full court defense or just like even playing underneath. She had something against the Sun last night where she stole the ball, scrapped the ball off the court, and just like came up after getting hit in the face with just this huge grin on her face. Like the people who are playing in Portland are enjoying what they're doing, and they have like great fans behind them. So it's great.
It's insane. And yeah, like, look, we can't ignore, like, I was not a fan of waiving Shug Sutton.
Yep.
She was a player, like, the other ones, honestly, I'm not concerned about. Shug was the one that's like, okay, why are you doing that? That doesn't make sense. But here's the thing. You've earned, so far at least, my benefit of the doubt. When you have this success, I'll question it. I'll say, hey, I don't like that move. But at the same time, I don't know the behind the curtain workings. And so far, the behind the curtain workings are workings. So can't be hating on that. Moving on to the LA Sparks. I mean, Plum been going off, but she's banged up, leading the league in points per game. Speaking of leading the league in points per game, the LA Sparks are up there just 0.2 points behind Las Vegas for second place and 2.2 points behind Indiana Fever. So they're up there, obviously, defensive wise, not as good, closer towards the bottom of the pack. Maybe that's because they are the bottom of the pack, sitting at 15th, letting up 96 points. So obviously, you're running and gunning. You're hoping you can outscore them. They are committed to this all-in win now mentality. And what do I mean by that? I mean, they got Cameron Brink and Rakia, then quickly make moves to move on from Rakia, but also to make moves to move on to what would have been the number 2 pick, which was Dom Malunga, to get Kelsey Plum. They bring in Ariel Atkins. So now we're talking about a team that is completely all in. You have Erica Wheeler, the vet, backup point guard. You got Kelsey Plum, Ariel Atkins, Derica Hamby, Nneka Agumake, Cam Brink, the young up-and-comer Ray Burrell. This team, it just doesn't seem like enough. It seems like you've put enough forward. I respect that. Excuse me. I did not tell you where they're sitting right now. They're sitting at 3-3. Sorry. I should have led with that. They're sitting at 3-3. Obviously not as many games as some of the other teams. But that said, they have not been that impressive. Yes, they got that win against Vegas. But besides that, they beat the Mercury. Okay, not that impressive. They lost by 10 points, letting up 106 to the Tempo. And that was the second game after they beat the Tempo by 4 points. They lost to the Fever. And then obviously they lost to the Aces. So this is a team that's struggling to find their defensive identity. They have a lot of big names. I just don't see how it pieces together. And it makes me so frustrated because this is a team that has just been so committed to a championship window right now. And I don't know why they think there is a championship window right now. They have a lot, it'll be a fun team. They'll be on the playoff bubble. And later in the season, we'll be sitting there like, oh, they have all these superstars. NECA's playing better statistically than she did in her MVP year. But it's still not turning out to wins, or it's still not turning out to them climbing out above 7th place. And I just feel like, I don't know. What about you?
They just don't have someone who's really still focused on this, is just playing really committed defense. There was something that came out, I think The Athletic reported on, that in practice, NECA just essentially lost it on people who just weren't playing tough defense in practice. And you wonder on who this with this roster, who's going to step up in that place. I think Cam has had a couple good games of playing defense at the rim, but I still feel like she has a ways to go to be a regular impact player on defense. I've seen Ray, traditionally a really good defender, but has also been in foul trouble a lot. So is she able to adjust to the new way that the game is being officiated? And maybe this absence of Plum for a week kind of gives us an idea of what does it look like maybe if the team leans more into defense, if you bring Ariel Atkins back and you have more maybe sprinkle in a little bit more Kate Martin, sprinkle in a little bit more Erica Wheeler maybe as a ball handler, maybe not, gives an effort on defense, maybe not the best defender in the league. I just wonder what it looks like if there's any saving of the defense on this team.
I'm gonna cut you off and say no, and I'm not even saying that to be rude. Mm-hmm. Hamby's a great defender. NECA can be a great defender. Mm-hmm. Kelsey Plum is not somebody that you're gonna stand there and go there is no guard defense. Atkins can be a great defender, but she's not an Elena Beard. She's not a Tamika Catchings. She's not a player that can be a polarizing defensive player. Yeah. And that's what this team struggles with, is if you don't have one of those, then everyone needs to buy in and be playing great defense. And they don't have it. It seems like they want that LA Flash pizzazz, but they don't have the oomph on defense. And I'm sorry, let's be real. If you're all in to win a championship, you need to be all in on defense. No team wins a championship without defense. And we have not been seeing that at all. So if I'm NECA, I'm laying into them. I'm also maybe questioning if Balloon Gate should have been a sign for her to go to Minnesota, who's sitting at the opposite of the standings. No shade. I'm just, throwing questions out there. Mm-hmm. I'm asking the questions. No, I just think it's, this team, we're going to have a lot to talk about as the season goes on, but also we can't ignore looking back to the moves that they made to put them in this position to have this roster. This was a planned and executed move by this front office to get this roster together because they felt like it was a championship contender, and they felt like it was such a good opportunity for a championship contender that they were going to pass on opportunities to have top rated assets, from recent drafts that have been really, really good. I know we're running long. I got to go. I know you got to go. To close out this episode, I just want to say thank you for listening and supporting independent WNBA coverage. Winsidr has been doing this a while. Kevin knows because Kevin was gone. Now he's back. And it only works because of a community like you. Excited to have you back, buddy. Subscribe, listen, and hit up our Patreon. Peace.